compositional abilities? Perhaps you're looking to learn music theory that you can actually apply to the guitar, but you don't know where to start. Or maybe you're like how I used to be, and you're writing the same riffs in the same key over and over again in the hopeless attempt that you're going to spontaneously come up with something new. My name is Lyman with Wired Guitarist, and I've spent years of my life and thousands of dollars attending school so I can learn more about music. And while I don't think there's any substitution for actually going to school for it, I understand that not everybody has the time or the ability to attend college. I intend to provide you with all the tools that you will need to expand your compositional abilities and even learn music theory that you can relate directly to your guitar. Over the course of a series of videos, I'll be going over everything from scale patterns to chord shapes to modes to the circle of fifths. You name it, I'm probably going to be going over it. So without further ado, grab your guitar and put on your thinking cap, and let's get cracking. Alrighty friends, and just before we get started, I've included a guide as well as a Guitar Pro format that's going to cover a lot of these voicings and these concepts that I go over. If you're new to music theory, these are going to be completely foreign to you and it might be difficult to get the first time around, so please feel free to reference those if you need. For the purpose of this demonstration, we're going to be hanging out in the key of D major. So starting on the 5th fret of your A string, we're going to have the pitches D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, and D. In order to organize and move them around a little bit easier, we're going to be applying numbers to these pitches, effectively having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 or 1. These will effectively be called scale degrees, and they will become particularly useful when we start branching out into other scales and when we start altering chords. So to construct the basic chords that live inside of this key, otherwise known as what are called diatonic triads, we're going to pick a starting note and then pick every other note in the scale until we have 3 pitches. For example, starting on the first pitch, D, we have D, skip the 2nd, F sharp, skip the 4th, and A. This creates a D major chord. Another example, if I start on the 2nd note of the scale, we have the pitches E, skip the 3rd, G, skip the 5th, B. This is called a minor chord. The pitches that live inside of these chords are going to be called the 1, the 3, and the 5. Not to be confused with the numbering of the scale, because the 1 is going to be movable in this instance, although they kind of function in the same way. And so you may have noticed that those 2 chords I just played have different qualities. And that's because the 1 is a major chord, and the 2 is a minor chord. And there are actually 3 different types of these basic chords that exist inside the major scale. The major chord, the minor chord, and the diminished chord. Now I'm going to show you how to construct these diatonic triads vertically and horizontally on the fingerboard. If you have a vertical and a horizontal representation of how these chords and scales are organized, it's going to really free up the entire fingerboard for you in your composing and in your improvisation. So starting with a major chord, take the first note, count 4 frets up, 1, 2, 3, 4, and now you have the 3rd, and now count 3 frets up, 1, 2, 3, for the 5th. Effectively, in order to organize it vertically down the neck, you're going to be taking your pinky on the 5th fret or the starting note. You're going to move 1 string down and 1 fret down with your ring finger. And then you're going to move 1 string down and 2 frets down with your index finger. A minor chord is going to be the same as a major chord, but we lower the 3rd by 1 fret. The act of lowering and raising notes is going to be called flat to lower and sharping to raise. So that one's going to look like this. Count 3 frets up, 1, 2, 3, and then count 4 frets up, 1, 2, 3, 4. In order to play that one vertically arranged, you're going to put your pinky on the 5th fret, And then you're gonna move one string down and 2 frets down with your middle finger. Then you're gonna move 1 string down and 1 fret down with your index finger. The last chord that we need in order to harmonize the entire scale is going to be a diminished chord. And so this chord is going to be the same as the minor chord, but we're just going to flat the 5th by 1/2 step. So, starting on the 5th fret again, we're going to count 3 frets up, 1, 2, 3, and then count 3 frets up again, 1, 2, 3. And this one's going to have the same organization as the minor chord vertically, except we're going to take our pinky on the 5th fret, move down 1 string, move down 2 frets with your middle finger, move down 1 string, move down 2 frets with your index finger. And just so you know, the pitches in these chords can be stacked in any which way, and these are going to be called chord inversions based off of what note's on the bottom. So let's say we're going to be starting on the 12th fret of the A string, and we're going to be constructing a major chord, otherwise known as A major. We're going to have that initial shape that we just used, I just showed you. But if I take this bottom note and I move it up an octave, and then we play the chord, we just played an A major chord in first inversion. If I take this bottom note of the chord again and then move it up an octave again, we now have an A major chord in second inversion. This is going to be the kind of fundamental learning blocks in order for you to start sweep picking as well and understanding how some of these sweep picked arpeggio patterns come into play, but once again, that will be for a later video. So once you get that under your fingertips and you'd like to progress on to something a little bit more challenging, we're going to show you how to do jazz chords. So jazz chords have a much more interesting timbre quality, and that's because they often contain dissonance. Dissonance occurs when pitches close together harmonically are played simultaneously. This results in a very tense and harsh sound. Jazz chords often contain this dissonance, but hide it very well and has a very nice and warm timbre because of the other notes associated with them. So here's that same dissonance I just showed you, but filled out nicely. This tension created from jazz chords gives composers a very unique opportunity to start providing tension and resolution, a kind of musical tug-of-war that can really pull on the heartstrings, and it's a wildly driving force in music. So to construct these basic jazz chords, we're going to take the same idea that we did for the basic chords, which is stacking every other pitch, or stacking thirds, and we just add one more. So now we have a 1, a 3, a 5, and a 7. When these basic jazz chords work together in a scale to emphasize the tonality, they're going to be called diatonic 7th chords. There's going to be 4 of these diatonic 7th chords, or these basic jazz chords as I like to call them, that exist inside of a major scale. A major 7th chord, a minor 7th chord, a dominant 7th chord, and a half diminished 7th, or commonly referred to as a minor 7 flat 5 chord. You can already hear how those chords were working nicely together to establish the key center of D. Now I'm going to show you how to construct these chords horizontally up across the fingerboard because I included those vertical chord patterns in the Guitar Pro format for you. So if you want to check those out, just go ahead and take a look at that. So in order to construct a major 7th chord horizontally, we're going to take a major chord bass from earlier and we're going to count 4 frets up from the 5th. So we take that major chord bass and now count up 4 frets. 1, 2, 3, 4. In order to construct the minor 7th chord, we're going to take the minor chord bass from earlier and then count 3 frets up from the 5th. So, minor chord bass, 3 frets up from the 5th, 1, 2, 3. In order to construct that dominant 7th chord, we're going to take the major chord bass from earlier and then count 3 frets up from the 5th. 1, 2, 3. And then last, in order to construct that minor 7 flat 5, or that half diminished chord, we're going to take the diminished chord base from earlier, and then we're going to count 4 frets up from the flat fifth. So that's, then count 4 frets up from the flat fifth. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's how you're going to organize each one of those chords horizontally. So just like how we had a pattern to harmonize the major scale with those diatonic triads, like I showed you earlier in this video, I'm going to show you the pattern to harmonize the major scale with these diatonic 7th chords, or these basic jazz chords. So the first of the scale is going to be a major 7th chord. The second's going to be a minor 7th chord. The third's going to be a minor 7th chord. The fourth's going to be a major 7th chord. The fifth is going to be a dominant 7th chord. The sixth is going to be a minor 7th chord. The seventh is going to be a half diminished 7th chord. And the octave, or the 1, is going to be another major 7th chord. After you get comfortable with playing all these voicings pretty comfortably and easily, try to start playing a chord scale with these ones as well. So here's what a chord scale sounds like with that. You can already hear how nicely that just emphasized the tonality or the pitch center of D. After you get really comfortable with each one of these voicings, try to experiment with finding your own voicings and your own chord inversions of these. I'll be giving you some in that Guitar Pro format, but the key thing to composition is going to be learning what these all sound like. So really getting all of these in your ear, because as a musician, your ear is going to be your most important tool. And then once you get that, is also just being creative with it. So try to find different patterns and try to be as creative as possible. Once you know these rules really well, try to break them in neat and interesting ways. One of my favorite ways to really kind of mess around with jazz chords is to arpeggiate them. So a pretty good example of a song idea I came up with arpeggiating this very scale jazz chord would be, and you can see now how that horizontal organization of each one of these chords can be wildly important, especially when you start getting into all the fun tapping stuff. That's going to be for some later videos. Obviously, you need to get the basics down of what I just showed you first. Thanks for tuning into the first episode on this series on composition and music theory. The major scale is going to be the foundation for everything you learn in music, so it's important to have an intimate understanding of its inner workings. I barely scratched the surface of it, so I'll be covering more concepts about it in later videos. The next video I'm going to be going over will be going over the same concepts except for the natural minor scale. This has been Lyman Gillen with Wired Guitarist, over and out.